but I knew many who deserved to live more than I did. But this is a radio program about nostalgia, not guilt. I've been nostalgic since I was 20, when I left Havana. In Europe, I felt different. Each country has a smell. Mars doesn't. Where I come from, the smell of the ocean, mango, bananas, coconut, mama's food, ropa vieja de la abuelita, el con gris, la yuca con mojito, the most beautiful sun on Malecón, the smell of my street when the rain falls, all of that make me into the person I am. So when I left, I grew stronger. I experienced the world, but forever stayed incomplete. So now I'm double nostalgic. We were full of life, laughing on warm nights under blue sky, touching each other. The air filled with the smell of sweat from dancing with a Orquesta Aragon playing from an apartment. Now, the only way I can feel this scent is by singing. ¿Cómo fue? No sé decirte cómo fue. No sé explicarme qué pasó, pero de ti me enamoré. Fue una luz que iluminó todo mi ser. Tu risa como manantial llenó mi vida de inquietud. Fueron tus ojos o tu boca, fueron tus manos o tu voz. Fue a lo mejor la impaciencia de tanto esperar tu llegada, mas no sé decirte cómo fue. No sé explicarme qué pasó, pero de ti me enamoré.
Slušajte Radio Nostalgiju sa Marsa.
Thank you, Yamil. What a wonderful story. Reminds us that life is about so much more than just base survival. Well, living in space has always been challenging, and here's a song that pokes a little fun that living in cramped quarters needs no introduction. Argue all you want, it's a classic.
Take a moment, relax, and remember with Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
A Russian and an American work together in space. A very different sight from the Cold War arms race, whether Kubrick or Tarkovsky, Solaris or 2001, Melville or Dostoevsky, Yesenin or Jack London, two astronauts argued about art, values and international relations. Two astronauts Америка убила иракцев, убила Че, Аллена и Ламумбу. Она убила корейцев и вьетнамцев, распространяя демократию. Don't get me started on Stalin and your talent to suffer under SARS. My friend, your history is long. You also inflicted scars. To us, they speak in two tongues, but still 4 hours they talk. The same oxygen in their lungs, the same thrill on their spacewalk. Сказал российский космонавт. I met my dog Laika in the sunrise. Like the American astronaut. Я скучаю по жене и домой. Сказал российский космонавт. Also miss my wife and just like Charlie the astronaut. Two astronauts argue about art. That is an international relationship. Two astronauts argued. Как светит солнце, свет Бога, как прекрасна голубая земля. Говорится гей из Роскосмоса. Indeed, search my friend with hope on our mind, on a mission for mankind.
Muzika iz starih dobrih dana. Radio nostalgija sa Marsa.
Church in there, and arguably the first interplanetary hit, Two Astronauts, an anthem to the Great Evacuation, and certainly one of our most popular requests. Speaking of requests, please follow Habitat protocols for sanitation. No liquids other than bodily in the main bin, including pee. Some of you don't like it, but all water is recycled, so pee into the funnel installed next to your toilet, please. Speaking of pee and poop, we recently welcomed our first official little Martian to the colony, and our next caller, Sophia, tells us what it's like to be a new mother on Mars.
I'm so happy we moved to Mars. It was a project I funded from the very beginning. I knew it had potential and I trusted the amazing team working on it. As angel investors, my husband and I got early placements in the ARC ship. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to further human survival in our solar system. Speaking of the human project, I have some exciting news. Just a week ago, we welcomed our baby boy into the world. Words cannot express how overjoyed we are at welcoming little Maxim. Putting him to bed reminds me of my parents. From our window here in Tesla City, we can see the Earth, tiny enough to fit in Maxim's hand. It pains me that my child might never experience the beauty of my home in the Hamptons. The nature, coastline, the old lighthouse, and the food, the houses of our friends, our evening parties, full of life compared to this barren, rugged terrain. I send my little Martian to sleep with a lullaby my mother sang for me. Thanks to these songs, I'm able to retain, at least on a rudimentary level, my mother tongue. She sang like this. Shushti, shushti, bamboo solis, pored moka prozora, noc ticho spuszcza na gra, za nebeski swodowa. Noc ticho spuszcza na gra, za nebeski swodowa.
We did shows from Mars.
Thank you, Sophia, for that uplifting news. and beautiful song. Life always finds a way. Just as precious as a new life is the water that sustains it. You may have noticed that it doesn't rain here on Mars, so another friendly reminder that showers are strictly limited to 30 seconds each, with no exceptions. Corporate is looking into extending this time frame, but is meeting resistance from Section BC, who want lab rat urine to be excluded from the water recycling program, which would actually reduce allocated shower times to 27 seconds. Want to say in this? Join our sectional weekly meetings and vote while sipping on a relaxing tube of OMAS. Feels good, as it should.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Speed on the Autobahn, like spaceship Earth around the sun. A diver's breath in a deep blue sea, bubbles like your thoughts of me. Make up sex on a summer's day, like an airplane on a runaway. Melts like ice cream in the sun, and doesn't fool anyone. Like a desperate man taking his chance, quick as the kiss at your first dance. Keep your eyes open and don't you blink, you'll miss the boat before it sinks. Slide passes quickly like bursts like a bomb, like a child in the morning will soon be gone. So hold it close and don't waste your breath, the time will come when nothing is left, 'cause life passes quickly, it flies by. Speed on the Autobahn, like spaceship Earth around the sun. Like a diver's breath in the deep blue sea, passes like your thoughts of me. Make up sex on summer's day, like an airplane on a runaway. Melts like ice cream in the sun, doesn't fool anyone. Like a desperate man taking his chance, quick as the kiss at your first dance. Keep your eyes open and don't you blink, you'll miss the boat before it sinks. Slide passes quickly like bursts like a bomb, like a child in the morning it will soon be gone. So hold it close and don't waste your breath, the time will come when nothing is left, 'cause life passes quickly, it flies by.
Your home away from home. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Life passes quickly indeed. Another blast from the past, reminding us to savor each moment as it flies by. Speaking of savoring,
Stories, memories, the good old days, original sources, authentic tales, hope, inspiration, drama, radio nostalgia from Mars.
So, when I was a kid in Vienna, in high school, we used to learn all the German burning books stuck with me. Yes, even till today. So, just to fast forward to college, just a couple of years before the Great Catastrophe, I was walking around Berlin with a group of friends coming from a house party Phew, I still remember that apartment smelling of potatoes. Yes, because we always made pommes and drank schnapps before heading out. Yeah. And after that, I remember passing by Alexanderplatz on that very, very hot night. And next to me was a guy I liked. We kissed before, but I can't say I really remember that. Probably from all the drinking, or maybe he was just a bad kisser. But I can still feel this sticky, sweaty, and very ambivalent feeling of us holding hands. Yeah, anyways, we popped some pills and entered our techno church that, well, now when I think back, I visited more often than my college. And I remember the beat in my chest and all these young bodies moving in this industrial space. I used to love dancing and counting beats in techno songs, but one song was very strange. It just went repetition, 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 and then this female vocal would creep out of nowhere. And then suddenly I felt very dizzy, so I sat on the ground and held my knees closely to my chest. It was some sort of like protective instinct. I was like an animal. And I felt cold sweat dripping down my neck. Ugh. And I'm sure my guy thought I was completely crazy. And then out of nowhere, the Heine lines clearly came to me. I sat there motionless, surrounded by the ugly, hypnotic, delirious atmosphere. And no effort to recall Heine's lines. They were just there, planted in my head. Wilde, düstere Zeiten dröhnen heran und der Prophet, der eine neue Apokalypse schreiben wollte, musste ganz neue Bestien erfinden. Und zwar so erschreckliche, dass die älteren johannischen Tiersymbole dagegen nur sanfte Täubchen und Amoretten wären. Die Götter verhüllen ihr Antlitz aus Mitleid mit den Menschenkindern, ihren langjährigen Pfleglingen und vielleicht zugleich auch aus Besorgnis über das eigene Schicksal. And yeah, 2 years later, I ended up here, on Mars.
That does bring back memories of university days and sweaty club nights. Earthly hedonism at its finest. For the record, corporate does not endorse or advocate the use of psychedelic drugs and reminds you, dear listeners, that Class A drugs are just as illegal here on Mars as they were on Earth. Okay, disclaimer out of the way, we actually have a surprise for Mirva. We tracked down that weird song in her head and dug it out of the archives for all to hear. Grab a tube of OMAS and enjoy the ride while sipping on pure calm.
The deepest tunes, the warmest memories. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Repetition, 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 repetition,